Okay, I need everybody to come over here and have a seat. Okay, I want you guys to put on your thinking caps, and I want you to think back to yesterday. Can we remember that far back? Okay. Do you remember when we talked about visualizations? We talked about when we hear a story, how we can close our eyes or even keep our eyes open and think of pictures that go along with that story, from things that maybe we've done or our personal experiences. And we call those visualizations or our own interpretation of the story. Do we remember that? Raise your hand if you remember that. Okay, so most of us remember. All right, well, we have the chance to be able to use those visualizations today. Isn't that exciting? Okay, so we're going to read this book. And who can tell me from looking at this book cover what the title of the book is? The title of the book. Yes, exactly right. It's Fireflies. And right underneath the title, it says Story and Pictures by Julie Brinklow. If the story is by Julie Brinklow, what does that make Julie if she's written this book? Can anybody tell me? Raise your hand and tell me. The author. That's exactly right. Julie is the author of this book because she has written this book. And if she's also done the pictures, what does that make Julie? If somebody's drawn the pictures in the book, what does that make them? The illustrator. Exactly right. You guys are so smart. Let's just look at this front picture. What do you guys think might happen in this story? What does it look like? Maybe some friends or a family, and they're catching something. What do you think that might be? Fireflies? Okay, but we'll just have to read and find out. Okay. On a summer evening, I looked up from dinner, through the open window to the backyard. What does it look like is in that backyard? Maybe a tree house? Yeah, anybody have a tree house in their backyard? A couple of you? It was growing dark. My tree house was a black shape in the tree, and I wouldn't go up there now. But something flickered there a moment. I looked, and it was gone. It flickered again, over near the fence. Fireflies! Don't let your dinner get cold, said Mama. What do you think that is? What's floating in the air? What do you think? Looks like the same thing that was on the front cover, doesn't it? Maybe a firefly, you guys think? Have any of you ever seen a firefly? Yes? Have any of you ever caught one? Oh my gosh, a lot of you have. And what did you do with it when you caught it? Did you keep it in your hands? Did you put it in a jar? You put it in a jar, okay, and did you keep it there? Yeah? Okay. I forked the meat and corn and potatoes into my mouth. Please may I go out? The fireflies. Mama smiled and Daddy nodded. Go ahead, they said. I ran from the table down to the cellar to find a jar. I knew where to look, behind the stairs. Look at all those jars. Think he's going to put a firefly in one of them like you guys did? Yeah? Good thinking. So are we remembering to keep those visualizations in our mind? Those pictures that we have in our brains, those really big brains of ours, about what's happening in the story? Maybe we can connect to the author. Maybe we've caught a firefly. Maybe we've done what he's done and put a firefly in a jar. And so we have pictures of that in our mind. It's our own interpretation of the story. It's a visualization. Well, you know what? I make visualizations too when I read stories, just like you guys. And I drew something that came to my mind the first time that I read this book. And I drew it on a piece of paper so you guys could see. Do you see? The jar with all the fireflies inside? That's what came to mind when I was reading this book. Because I remember when I was little, when I was your age, I remember we would go in our backyard and my sister and I would go around and catch the fireflies and put them in jars. That's a memory that I have. So that visualization, putting those fireflies in the jar, came to my mind. Okay, and we'll talk about some of those visualizations you guys are having here in a little bit. The jars were dusty and I polished one, clean on my shirt. Then I ran back up, 2 steps at a time. Holes I remembered so they can breathe, and as quietly as I could. So she wouldn't catch me dulling them, I poked holes in the top of the jar with Mama's scissors. Everybody see that? So the fireflies can breathe. The screen door banged behind me as I ran from the house. If someone said, "Don't slam it," I wasn't listening. I called to my friends in the street. Fireflies! But they had come before me with polished jars, and others were coming behind. Everyone see all his friends with all their jars? Who has a visualization or a picture that they've been thinking of in their mind while I've been reading this story that they'd like to share with everyone? Whoever has a visualization that they'd like to share, to raise their hand. Okay, how about you share your visualization? Difficult word to say. Go ahead. So you pictured something really similar that I did. You pictured putting the fireflies in a jar just like he did. Anybody else? Yes. Awesome. So you remember a time that you and your dad caught a firefly. And what did you do with it? You set it free? Okay. All right, we're going to go back to reading the story, but I still want you to keep picturing and keep those visualizations in your mind while we're reading this. Let's see what happens next. The sky was darker now. My ears rang with crickets, and my eyes stung from staring too long. I blinked hard as I watched them. Fireflies, blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making white patterns in the dark. That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? All those fireflies lighting up the sky like stars. We ran like crazy, barefoot in the grass. Catch them, we cried, grasping at the lights. Suddenly a voice called out above the others, "I caught one!" And it was my own. I thrust my hand into the jar and spread it open. The jar glowed like moonlight, and I held it in my hands. I felt a tremble of joy and shouted, "I can catch hundreds!" Do you guys really think he could catch hundreds of fireflies? Raise your hand if you think he could actually catch hundreds. How much is 100? A lot, right? Then we danced about, waving our hands in the air like nets, catching 2, 10, hundreds of fireflies, thrusting them into jars, waving our hands for more. Look at all those fireflies. Could you guys do that? Could you catch hundreds of them with your bare hands? Who thinks they could? Raise their hand. Okay. Then someone called from my house, "It's time to come in now," and others called from other houses, and it was over. My friends took jars of fireflies to different homes. I climbed the stairs to my room and set the jar on a table by my bed. Mama kissed me and turned out the light. "I caught hundreds," I said. Daddy called from the hallway. From the hallway. "See you later, alligator." "After a while, crocodile." Who's ever said that? "See you later, alligator." Have you guys ever said that before? I caught hundreds of fireflies. So he wanted to tell his parents about it too. Oh my goodness, look at all those fireflies. In the dark, I watched the fireflies from my bed. They blinked off and on, and the jar glowed like moonlight. But it was not the same. The fireflies beat their wings against the glass and fell to the bottom and lay there. Oh my goodness, they're just laying there. What does that mean? What do you think that means? Are they tired? What's going on? The light in the jar turned yellow, like a flashlight left on too long. I tried to swallow, but something in my throat would not go down, and the light grew dimmer, green, like moonlight underwater. Oh my goodness, there's no light anymore. Anybody have any guesses what happened? They're sleeping? Okay, let's see. I shut my eyes tight and put the pillow over my head. They were my fireflies. I caught them. They made moonlight in my jar, but the jar was nearly dark. I flung off the covers. I went to the window, opened the jar, and aimed it at the stars. Fly! Then the jar began to glow. Green, then gold, then white as the moon, and the fireflies poured out into the night. Fireflies! Blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making circles around the moon like stars dancing. I held the jar, dark and empty, in my hands. The moonlight and the fireflies swam in my tears, but I could feel myself smiling. What a great story. Did you guys like that story? Yeah, was it something that maybe some of you guys could relate to? Yeah, because a lot of you said you caught fireflies too, so maybe this has happened to some of you before. Huh. All right. Well, I know that you guys are really smart, and I know that you remember we were talking about keeping those pictures in our mind, right? So I want all of you guys to close your eyes, close them real tight, and think about some of those pictures that were going through your mind. Those visualizations you guys had. Maybe from a story that happened a lot like this in your own life. I want you to think about 3 or 4 of those pictures. Think. Keep it in your mind. You guys are smart. Just remember those. Keep them in your mind. And I want you to keep those in your mind while we very quietly walk back to our seats. And we're going to get the chance to draw those pictures and make our very own story. And make visualizations. How awesome is that? Okay, so let's quietly walk back to our seats. You guys did an awesome job.